Hey guys, welcome back to UB3. Something I wanted to talk about today was just some things that people should consider when starting to look for a job. It's kind of that time of year where a lot of people are about done actually with residency. They might be finishing up with fellowship, and if you haven't thought about it, started thinking about it yet, it's now time to start thinking about where to go next, what kind of jobs you want, where you want to be, and I've had several residents talk to me about this, not just this year, but in previous years as well, about, they really don't know where to begin. And so, doing what I do, I made a list of just some big picture life items that I thought were important to take into consideration when looking for a job and planning for the next phase in life. So the first thing you want to take into consideration is location. So where do you want to live? For some people, this is a really easy question to answer because maybe they want to go back home to be near their families, or they have a dream city that they want to go back to, whatever. For others, including me, I had no idea. And so I kind of just went with the flow and took things as they came. But for many people, they have very specific lifestyle needs, things they can and cannot tolerate, such as weather extremes. Maybe you're not a big city person. Maybe you need to be in a small town. Maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you need to be in a big city. Um, some people love living on the coast. Some people love living in the Midwest. Some people prefer being in the South, so on and so forth. So what you got to do is figure out what is the best fit for you and then go from there. It's important to do this first because depending on the location that you decide that you need to be in, that can change your options in terms when you're job hunting. So first, figure out your location, and then next, figure out what exactly are your career goals. Where do you see yourself going in terms of how you progress in your job? So, are you the type of person who wants to be an employee and just continue working in your shifts? Or do you have ambitions in regards to joining committees, doing administration? Are you interested in research? Do you prefer academics versus private practice? Um, and then keep in mind, academics has a different set of responsibilities versus private practice, and so on and so forth. So exactly like what do you see happening over the next several years? This is my cat. Over the next several years, and then try to find an institution or an area where the job will not only give you what you want, but allow you to grow as you see yourself growing. Next, salary. This is an important consideration for everybody. We're all coming out of our training with probably a whole bunch of money and loans that we have to pay back. And then for some people, if they have families, if they have kids, if they're planning on getting married soon, then the more you make, obviously, the easier it is to plan for the future and to be able to pay off any debt and pay for things. And so, while this is a very important thing to take into account, for instance, obviously you get paid more in private practice than you do in academics. You get paid more if you live in a small town versus living in a big city. However, I do encourage people to not make this the only determining factor when choosing a job. Life is all about balance. And while it is important to pay off debt, it is important to have extra money to be able to pay for things. You also need to be able to live your everyday life in a way that's satisfying and emotionally fulfilling for you too. So if you're a city person, but you take a small town job because you know you'll get paid more, think of how miserable you're going to be. You might be able to tolerate it for 6 months or a year, but obviously that's not a long-term thing. And of course, if you go into it knowing it's temporary, then that's one thing, as long as you have a backup plan. But just be careful because I've seen a lot of people make decisions based on this alone, and they just end up being very unhappy. So just make it a part of your decision, just not the only part that you take into account. And then finally, lifestyle. So on one end, you have a certain image in your mind of how your career is going to go, but then you also, as an attending, all of a sudden are going to have all this free time. You're not going to be studying for boards anymore. You don't have to answer to anybody when you go to work in regards to academically. So you don't need to be studying day to day. You're going to have all this time when you come home every day, and so you're going to have your life back, and you're going to start wanting to build that up again. And so, what kind of lifestyle do you want to lead? Do you want to have your weekends free to explore and see where you're at? Do you want to be able to take trips? Do you want enough vacation time where you can actually travel and fulfill some travel goals? Do you want to get out at the same time every day so that you can make plans for dinner? If you have kids, obviously, then that's a more important um, consideration to take into account. And so, what exactly does your life look like? Because your life is not just about your job; it's also about everything that you do outside of work. And so, figure that out. What is it that you need in your day to day that's going to make you happy, that's going to keep you fulfilled, that's going to give you balance? And so then once you figure out what it is that you need, then you can parlay that when you are looking for jobs and interviewing. And you can use that as a starting point to ask people questions as well in terms of like, are they happy here? Do they have enough time to do the things that they want to do? So on and so forth. For people who still don't know what they want, taking these things into account, they still don't have any solid answers, it's okay. There is absolutely no need to freak out. We've spent our entire lives going from one structured thing to another. And so I think for a lot of people, they kind of think that once they're done with training, they need to have a job. That's not the case. If you can't figure out exactly where you want to be, if maybe money is not such a big issue, if you just want to experiment and figure out exactly what city is best for you, what area of the country is best for you, you don't know exactly career-wise what is going to be the best fit, then there are options for you out there still. You're not going to be jobless. You're not going to be homeless. You can do per diem. You can do locums. You can work part-time somewhere. You can do any number of things. You can take some time off. Plenty of people that I know that took weeks or months off to spend time with family, to kind of get back to a normal sleep rhythm and really figure out what it is that they want in life. And that's okay. You should do that. Take the time if you need to and if you have the ability to do so. And then remember that no matter what, when you do end up in a job, nothing is permanent. You might be bound by contract for a year or two. And sometimes you need that much time in a job to figure out if that's what you really like, to really adjust to the system and figure out if it's the best fit. And then after that, if you don't like it, you leave. Nothing is set in stone. You will have a job if you decide not to stay with the first one. In fact, most people I know don't permanently stay with their first jobs. Most people end up switching because what you think you want when you first start working doesn't always match up to what you actually end up needing from life. And so it's okay to change your mind. It's okay if your priorities shift. And it's okay if you don't have all the answers. You don't need them. There are options. Talk to people that you work with. You'd be more than surprised. There are many attendings who, maybe they're working at their current job for the last 5 or 10 years, but when they first started out, they were doing locums, or they took 6 months off and they traveled, or whatever. And so you don't know what anyone's story is. Just talk to people, figure out what they've done, get as much advice as you can, and then do whatever is best for you. You don't have to have a job just because everybody else that you know is getting one. You don't need to live in the city just because everyone else is. You don't need to work in private practice just because everyone else. So on and so forth. You get the idea. And so it's a daunting process. It's hard to figure out what you actually want and what your life is going to actually look like. But just try to figure out what you're good with. Try to figure out with what you are okay sacrificing if anything does need to be sacrificed. And then go out there and try to find what you think will be the best fit. And then give it a chance. And then if it doesn't work out, you move on. And if it does work out, you can stay. That's life, right? You're just trying to figure it out, take it day by day, and then you go from there. And that's about it. There's no right answer for what to do. Everyone's got to make their own choice based on what's best for them. My own story was very unique. I will have a different video of that completely, talking about how exactly I found my current position and how long I've been here and so on and so forth. But if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Feel free to comment on the video or check out the related posts that I have on ub3.com. And I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you later.